Every week, I, your host KarQ, will be answering the top most upvoted questions on the Overwatch University subreddit. Cue the intro. All right, what do we have this week? Number one question most upvoted was how to deal with Mauga ult as Doomfist. Finally got the time to play some games as Doom last night versus Mauga. In the neutral, I don't mind the matchup as Mauga can't really peel very well, and it feels like just a matter of playing around his overdrive and going for the backline. I think he means overrun. But seriously, what the hell is his ult? And what the hell am I supposed to do? It's basically like being EMP'd and grabbed for 10 seconds, but your supports can't heal you either. The ability lockout is absurd. Is there even anything you can do as Doomfist other than try not to go anywhere near him when he has ult available? How can I contest the cart if he can just get a free kill? To answer your question, you can't do anything about it. It's just like you said, if you get grabbed as Doomfist, you can't do anything except hold your power block if you have that cooldown available and wait for the duration to end. If you get caught in the Mauga ult as Doomfist, the only ability that you have available is the power block. And you can freely move around and you can primary fire at least. So your only options are to duel the Mauga with your primary fire and block as necessary, or contribute your primary fire to the surrounding Mauga cage, because that has 1500 HP, and pray your team has some sort of ability or enough firepower to break the 1500 HP cage fight. That's it. As Doomfist, you can't do anything about it except those two things. It does sound like, wow, it's a free contest. How can I contest card if he gets a free kill? It's a tank ultimate. There's a lot of cases where any other tank ultimate could accomplish similar things. It's supposed to be powerful for a reason. If Sigma has Flux, how can you contest the cart if he can just lift you up off of it and you can get a Sig 9? As, you know, Zarya, like I mentioned earlier, if you get grabbed, you can't do anything about it. Maybe Wrecking Ball Mines, you can, Doomfist has some options against that, but that's basically what we're getting at. You can't do anything about Mauga's ult as Doom. Next question. Is there a reason many top 500 flex DPS's hero pools is Genji, Tracer, and Echo? Obviously, some of them have some hit scan, especially Widowmaker, on their profile, but these three are the most used. Do they fill different niches and fill each other's gaps? If you imagine yourself as one of them, on what situation would you choose and swap between these three? Thinking for a bit, I think Echo is mainly used on maps where there's a lot of vertical cover, like Rooftop, so they can drop assassinate someone, and to counter Pharah, especially if they have a Mercy. Also good to assassinate tanks, especially hard to kill high HP tanks like Wrecking Ball. Before I carry on, no, you generally do not burst down a Wrecking Ball. You try to go for the squishies. Any case, Genji is used mainly for Nano Blade, so Ana must be on the team, but also good if enemy team has vulnerable DPS and support such as Hanzo, Widow, Soldier, Zen, Ana, etc., but not ideal if enemy comp is really tanky or highly mobile. Tracer is viable in almost every situation, is a last resort pick when Genji and Echo doesn't work, but not ideal when enemy support comp is Illari Kiriko, bracket skill matchup. Okay, so this user ended up rambling a little bit on their thought process on why they think the top 500 flex DPS heroes are those. My answer to that, as someone who plays in the top 500 bracket and I'm not a top 500 DPS player, I'm a top 500 support player, let's get that clear, but I play against them all the time. I would say the number one most popular this season especially is Tracer. And the easiest answer is that, number one, these three heroes you listed are very fun, especially Genji and Tracer. You know, high mobility, high skill ceiling heroes are generally the most popular amongst like sweaty DPS or really like high level competitive gamers. If you think in even other games, people love playing things like high skill ceiling heroes like League of Legends. We have Zed, he just TPs and does some crazy outplay maneuvers. When you think of Valorant, I don't know, like Jett, anything that has high skill representation, that's what players tend to gravitate towards, and they don't gravitate towards really boring or one-dimensional heroes, which is why Reaper and Moira and things, well, Moira is a support, but DPS Moira, those heroes are not as popular because they just simply aren't as fun, even though they might be good in a vacuum. I'm of the belief, as a side note, that Reaper and Moira are actually pretty good in a vacuum, but people just don't want to play them because they're not fun. Number two, you were kind of rambling on what cases to use these heroes. Tracer is a one-size-fits-all. She can be played in all compositions, literally brawl, poke, and dive. She's the best in dive. Brawl, you generally do at the highest levels, you do kind of want to like play something that's, you know, all together, maybe like Reaper, May, or something all collectively together. But in general, the reason why you can still fit Tracer in is because she does her own thing. She's self-sufficient, doesn't need any supports because she can go for health packs. High mobility, she's slippery, and she can pressure from a completely different angle or an off angle, and that's her power. And she got buffed this season where her damage is back to 6 damage per bullet. The pulse bomb can also instantly delete someone or at least force some major support cooldowns. So she's the all-around best flex pick among the three you mentioned. Genji is a bit more reserved for dive and does complement very well with Nano Blade if possible. Echo works really well with Mercy, like you said earlier, but is actually pretty good on her own, even without a Mercy pocket. You can play anybody that can remotely heal reliably, so I wouldn't play it with like Bap Lucio, for example. It's a lot harder to reliably heal the Echo, but an Echo player might play it with like Ana Brig comps, because Brig can throw health packs. Ana can shoot the Echo and help the Echo out, and her playstyle is actually less about bursting the tanks and more about being sneaky, doing that initial flight and trying to sticky and beam one of the squishies down in general, and then you poke with your tri-beams from a distance because there's no fall off damage, and then you just commit when the team with good timing, good committal, sticky someone, burst them down, and again, high skill ceiling because Echo requires knowledge of all the heroes, because you can duplicate anybody in the game. Anybody, you need to be proficient. There literally cannot be a hero you've never played before, or else you should not play Echo. So there's that. What makes D.Va not currently a top tier tank? Is it really just support power creep? I feel D.Va is fine on most maps and incredibly broken on others, yet my team always wants me to swap and spawn. I'm Masters 1 currently. I see a lot of content creators putting her in the bottom middle of tier lists as well, but she just seems damn good to me currently. Well, first of all, I'm a content creator, but I've never put D.Va at the bottom middle. Just pointing that out there. She has mobility to get in and out. Matrix is good at denying Hog, who I see every now and then, and she can ignore Sigma and Brawl tanks and has good burst damage. She even deals with cheese tank busters incredibly well, so what is it that I'm missing? Your assessment of it is correct. D.Va is fine, just like you said. She's not top tier because at the higher levels, players love gravitating towards what's fun. So that's why, like, no matter what the meta is, you'll always find Doomfist players, because Doomfist has the highest skill representation, or they'll play what's really meta. And to be honest, D.Va is kind of like a jack of all trades and not a master of none. She's a very versatile playstyle, but she's not like super great. Like if you're gonna run a dive, you want to play like really good dive heroes that are really good at that role, because you can complement them really well, like a Winston or Doom dive. If you're gonna play Brawl, you want to brawl with really strong Brawl characters like Ramattra or Ryan and complement it with Lucio. D.Va, although she has vertical mobility, she's not like a true dive, because the other two dive tanks can do it a little bit better. But D.Va's strength comes from being a bit more niche, because she's flexible and versatile. Instead of you playing like a composition around like doing something offensively, kind of like an itch you can't scratch on the back, something just like a little bug, like a really annoying tank. Just good matrices and a defensive playstyle to mitigate the enemy dive. If they have a Winston, you're just annoying the Winston, booping them off, matrixing the enemy Ana's cooldowns all the time, and using your mobility to play that specific part of the map. Very niche. You can't like, I mean, you can play D.Va on all phases of a map, but in general, at least what I've seen, like I played with Emong and Jay last night in a ranked game. I ran into them, and Emong played D.Va first point Nambani only on both sides, attack and defense, before he swapped, simply because D.Va's vertical mobility is really good for covering high ground and being flexible enough to annoy whatever the enemy wanted to throw. If they wanted to go top right, they wanted to come main, D.Va's there to just, you know, dive the enemy Ana, who's playing at bottom Nambani main, matrix and kill, or, you know, fly up and annoy the Doom or the Winston who is diving like me in the back line. So she's just there to be a little nichey, but like she's still good. Jack of all trades, but not a master of none. She's very flexible. I still think she's like middle upper tier. Very good in the hands of a very proficient player still. What would arguably be the most unconventional person to play as? I see that there seems to be many strategies for nearly every characters. This is normally good, but are there any characters that are not very intuitive to play, or whose playstyles are quite idiosyncratic? The idea is that other players are unfamiliar with the character, who will not be able to see it and think, I know exactly what you're doing. So I think what you're getting at is heroes that have unconventional or like two very distinct play styles, so they're harder to predict. So some heroes are very easy to predict. So the first things that come to my mind are probably Symmetra, Brig, and even D.Va, like the question earlier, because a hero like Brig, it's like, I know what you're doing, because like you would think Brig is from Overwatch 1 is very like upfront with your team and brawly and swing away, but like she's actually a very defensive oriented hero now, who is a little bit squishy with only 200 HP and a more flimsy shield compared to the previous iterations of her. So you have to play her as a more defensive, annoying kind of character. A hero like Sim can have two different playstyles. She can just sit there and poke forever, or she can go all in with like a TP bomb, charge up the beam in your face. So you can't really predict and think, I know what you're doing, because like they can swap it up just like that. But in general, there are like hero guides for every hero at this point. There's probably one main style that most players know how to play against, but the unconventional stuff can totally work. It's a bit of a cheese strat, and the cheese strats are surprisingly work really well against teams that are not coordinated, aka a lot of the metal ranks. So another one that comes to mind is Moira, the TikTok flank DPS Moira. If you do it right with the right biotic orbs in the back line, and like the enemy team just so happens to not all be in voice chat, they're trying to ping and ask for help because the Moira is just 1v1ing and killing people in the back line, but nobody's adjusting to it. It's unconventional and nobody knows how to respond to it. So there's another one that I thought of. Actually, now that I think about it, DPS Moira, that's the most unconventional playstyle, although people are catching on to it, but still. That shit works. Is it my fault if my teammates are telling me to swap as ball, even when I'm doing well? I'm a silver gold wrecking ball one trick, and I get games where I feel like I'm doing well, the most kills in the team, and I'm disrupting the enemy team well, then someone on my team tells me to swap because they need a shield. I try to argue my case, but they don't listen, so I'm pressured into swapping. Then we proceed to do even worse, as I have much less experience with other tanks, and it's difficult to swap from a hero that can go wherever, whenever, to one that dies if I go many steps in one direction. I get called a terrible tank. Is it fine to not swap if you know it will only make the situation worse? This one's a tough one. The thing is, if you choose to one trick, you're gonna have to tolerate people not liking you. It's not illegal to one trick, it's a video game. But you have to understand that like people are not gonna like you and people are gonna flame you. My advice in this video game, to be completely honest, I might get some heat for this, just play your hero. Who cares? At the end of the day, it's a video game. You guys are silver and gold. You guys are playing for fun. Yeah, you may be arguably ruining the fun, but you are still winning games. And then people people can say it's a skill issue that you can only one trick, but then you can also counter and be like, it's a skill issue if you think you need a shield on a tank to win. It's kind of like the analogy where like if you go play some pickup basketball and you play with this ball hog, it's not illegal to be a ball hog, but they're annoying as shit. You might get the avoid, constant avoid message, but just play the game. Should I use D.Va missiles only when I can kill, or whenever I can do damage is fine? When should I use micro missiles? I find myself underutilizing missiles. I know the obvious answer is to use missiles to confirm kills. So if I'm just shooting someone and don't expect them to die, I don't use missiles. For example, shooting a KarQ with shift or Mei with shift, high HP tank. And then when I think I can kill someone with my shift and regular shots, I don't use missiles. For example, Zen without teammate to run. Thus, I feel like my missiles barely get used. When I watch good divas like Gigery, I see she would use missile on a full HP tank in a trade, or use missile on a KarQ to force her shift, so I conclude that I can use wherever I can hit the most, or even if I have no chance. Always applying damage is never really a bad thing. A couple of tips with micro missiles is, number one, if you're really far away from any enemy target, micro missiles is an ability that doesn't have any fall off damage. So if they're kind of standing in one place, you could just fire your missiles, pew, 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 even from a long range. It's a pretty short cooldown, and it has like 150 damage or something total if you hit every single one, and no fall off. Obviously, if you use your shotguns from that, like, let's say 30 meters away, your spread is huge and you have fall off, you do almost no damage with your primary, but the missiles surprisingly can poke. You say you don't use missiles when shooting a KarQ with Mei or shift. I still think you should. The faster you can force those cooldowns, you can force mistakes. If like the KarQ underestimates the burst you have, and honestly, D.Va's burst up close is really, really good with the combo of micro missiles. You can 200 to 0 most squishy heroes in the game. So I would say use it almost every time where possible off cooldown. Now, there are times where you're trying to 3-2-1 with like another dive hero like Tracer. Then as you're flying in, you want to save it till when you're getting close, so you have that activation period, because there's like a little bit of like a half-second delay before they come out. So you can get up to their face, and as you're flying in, if you know they have a sleep dart like an Ana, as you fly to them, you pop your micro missiles, so they start coming out while you're getting really close to the Ana. The Ana looks at you and tries to use a sleep dart. You pull out your defense matrix, and your missiles still come out even while your matrix is out. If you're matrixing, you can't primary fire. But if you're matrixing, you can still micro missile. So you can already start damaging her while you hold the matrix over the Ana's face, so the missile's already starting to pressure. And as soon as you feel like she's done using her nade or her sleep, or you're trying to bait it out, then you start primary firing, and then you can hopefully convert some kills. But in general, use your missiles whenever you can. Better to use it than to hold it. Next question. New player trying to win quick play games to unlock competitive and have currently lost 25 games in a row. Hello everyone, I'm a new Overwatch player, currently in the process of winning games I need to win in order to unlock competitive. However, I'm on a 25 game losing streak. I wanted to ask, is this normal? Of course not. That's not normal. I mainly play DPS and support with my characters being Sombra, Cass, and Zen on a BAP. I do think I reasonably do well in each game. I usually match my opponent's DPS support and damage, elims, and healing. However, I'm currently struggling to win games, which is especially bad since a lot of the heroes I want to play require me to win games. In the 25 games I've lost in a row, I've lost around 6 of them involving us getting completely spawn trapped by the enemy team. While most of the other games weren't close at all, I just want to ask, is normal if I'm doing something really wrong as a new player? And then funny story, I just broke my 25 game losing streak an hour after I posted this and got to play the game. In the nicest way possible, it's not normal. And there's a lot to learn in this game. I wouldn't say you're doing anything fundamentally wrong, but there's just a really high learning curve, especially if this is your first time playing a first-person shooter. There's lots of dynamics to understand in the game. I can't remember how many heroes we're at now. 35 plus heroes. We're close to 40. That's all I know. Each of them having unique abilities, timings. You have to memorize all the maps, how to play the objective, how to play to your strengths of a hero. To be honest, you want to play 25 to unlock competitive, but I would actually steer away from competitive right now. Quick Play has its own matchmaking rating system that's hidden from you, but it has skill-based matchmaking. So if you are losing 25 in a row, you're probably tanking your Quick Play MMR, but that's not a bad thing because you need to play in this area to still learn the fundamentals of the game before you play ranked. I mean, you could play ranked, but it's going to put you in the bottom of bronze 5. I'm just going to say it. 25 losses in a row, new player, probably bronze 5. There's Overwatch 1 players who played for 7 years and are in bronze 5. If there's a rank below bronze 5, you might be there because you're competing with them and they probably know the maps and the heroes, but like the game is hard for a lot of people. I'm not saying you can't get better, but keep putting in work in the game. You said you just broke the streak, and just keep learning. Keep asking questions in the subreddit, and if I ever come across your questions again, I'll be happy to answer them. And the community here is pretty good. They'll answer your questions too. Next question. How do I deal with Tracer as any tank? Low plat tank here. Today I had a game on Nambani. We had captured first point fast. Their team wasn't that good, but then one of them pulled out Tracer and absolutely demolished the backline. My DPS swapped to main cast, but still couldn't kill her. Later on, we lost. I got blamed for the Tracer, killing everyone. I was playing Ryan, Sig, Zarya, and I had to stay on point. DPS kept saying that I have to back up to protect them, that I have to kill the Tracer, not them. The problem is that my backline was super scattered, not even near each other, so the Tracer could get easy picks. WTF do I do? The simple answer is most tanks, it's actually not your job to deal with Tracer. And if you actually run back as like a Reinhardt trying to swing and run at the Tracer, you're actually doing worse for your team because you're not holding your ground, shielding, and drawing attention from the other team looking at you. So like when people, I used to do 1-tip videos on YouTube, of course, and whenever we would say the best tip is to ignore them because that's not your job. That's literally a tip because you're losing value by chasing someone that's too mobile and you're just removing yourself from what your strength is as a hero. Now you did say you're playing Rhine, can't do anything about it, you're too slow. Sigma, can't do anything about it either. Your shots are too unreliable with Tracer's mobility. Zarya, the only thing you can do there is maybe bubble someone if Tracer has a pulse and you're expecting that. But they are blaming you, but in general, it's not your fault. D.Va and Zarya are probably your best 2 options if you were to choose to peel for the Tracer. The onus is, believe it or not, on the DPS or the other supports to help each other. If they're playing scattered, that's on them. If I'm an Ana player and the Tracer is like actually dodging all my sleeps and playing really well, I have to ask for my Brig. I ask for my Lucio, I ask for a cast to play near me. You play 2 people beside each other and it helps a lot. You ask for the KarQ to play near you. KarQ has that threat with the Suzu together. The one thing you can do though as a tank is to not play too far forward. If you know their Tracer is dominating, you can't it goes both ways. You can't run back for the Tracer on a lot of the tanks, but you also just can't W key into them without understanding that your backline doesn't have line of sight, cannot properly heal you for a bit. You have to play a little bit more defensive and understand that aspect of the game. The best tank players I ever play with are the ones that understand. I'm literally calm. I'm getting jumped by Tracer right now, and that's a cue for the tank player to not just W key and press all their buttons, unless of course they have like a big major ultimate and they can actually draw the attention of 3. While that Tracer is drawing the attention of like 2 of the backlines, like myself, then my tank has the abilities to draw the attention of 2 or 3 people as well because they have the things. But in most cases, they don't have like crazy abilities like that to do whatever they want. But That's the best tip I can give you against Tracer. I'm a Pharah one-trick struggling to play against my counters, probably hit skins. I know that all characters can be one-tricked into GM, that's true, and learning to play into your counters is essential, that's also true. I saw another post saying that counterpicking is a crutch and only helps you win short-term but stops you from improving in the long-term on the characters you really want to play, that's also true. So I'm really trying to brute force Pharah out of metal ranks, but I find myself soft locked against my counters. I see a lot of advice here saying that you have to play smart around cover to beat hit scans as Pharah, but like, yeah, obviously you would do that no matter what. Can anyone expand on that with more specific advice on how to actually approach the fight against hit scan specific matchups, scenarios, map angles, rotations? For example, taking a duel against Soldier who was on Hollywood first, high ground defense, we're both jiggly peeking each other from cover. How do I win this? TTK and survivability is faster and higher than mine. Should I save Boop to get him out of his heal or to get him out of cover? I see a lot of D.Vas hard focusing me now too. There are games where I'm dead most of the match. My other DPS is 10x my kills and damage, yet the D.Va will save all her cooldowns only on me. The whole match she's just boosting into me, DMing me nonstop. What can I do against this? Also, how does Pharah versus Genji matchup work? I had a game where it was 4v4 because me and the Genji spent the whole match 1v1ing and neither of us could kill each other. I can't even hit him with splash due to the double jump. You can't land any shurikens when I'm touching the skybox. Number one, I think Pharah without a mercy pocket, like if you're raw dogging Pharah, she's like low in the middle tier, like middle lower tier. I think with a mercy pocket or any sort of resources, especially the mercy pocket, she does become absolutely lethal, even against counters like multiple hit scans. Obviously, like you mentioned, you are supposed to play cover, but the number one tip for not even just Pharah or DPS players is timing. You can't just solo initiate against 2-3 hit scans that are all looking at you. You actually have to wait for a tank or your other DPS to draw attention so that the hit scans are not directly looking at you in that exact moment and they look away for a moment. Timing is literally a core DPS skill that is just not talked about enough, in my opinion. For the example you mentioned with Soldier, booping him off that high ground is actually a good strat. Get him off the areas where he's strong, jiggle for a bit, or wait till your tank is walking forward. And just like I mentioned earlier, if the Soldier starts looking down, go in right in his face, believe it or not. If you actually play 10 to 20 meters away, like poking from a distance, it makes it very easy for a Soldier or a Cass or Ashe. That's the best timing and angles for them to just pew, 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 and you're actually dead. If you actually get into their face, it actually forces them to do one of these, looking up. You know how hard that is for a lot of players, especially like you said, you're in platinum. Even me as an Ana, like I'm in top 500. I've been playing this game for a long time. If I'm like shooting this Pharah and then she's like, if she goes directly up in front of me, like 30 meters away, it's really easy for me to hit her, excuse me. But if she's really close, she ease in or concussives in, sorry, I don't know what the console binding is, and goes right over my head. I have to do one of these, and then your screen gets locked when you look up because it's like it's capped. So you have to actually rotate if she goes over your head. So getting in the face right away also reduces the chances of the hit scans to hit you back and lowers the distance between Pharah and the rockets hitting you. Because if you're playing 30 meters away, that's the hit scan's advantage. But the closer you are, the faster your rockets go down. And the faster you hit that first rocket, slightly boops them, messes up their aim, and then they die. Okay, last one. How to deal with Sky Genjis as Pharah. I'll be real, I almost exclusively one-trick Pharah because I love playing her. I generally play into my counters to try to learn how to beat them like Soldier or Ashe. But Genji, I've died to this man more times than an actual hit scan. What the? I just can't, for the life of me, kill this guy for the life of me, and I don't know why he isn't even necessarily a Pharah counter. How do I get good at this? Like, you don't have to shoot the Genji. If he's kind of on the ground and not double jumping, then you can go for like a splash on the ground. But in general, it's very hard to hit a direct when he's like in the air. The best time to hit him is when he's wall climbing or when he's not looking at you and diving a backline and closer to the ground. That's it. You also have to stay out of his dash range so he can't dash at you and like actually right click melee you. That means you're probably flying a little too low. As long as you're staying far enough into the sky or waiting in cover, go for somebody else that's more ground based so it's easier to play against. A lot of people think that they have to deal with every single matchup in this game, but you have to play to your hero's strengths, and hitting a mobile Genji isn't really a Pharah's strength, and it isn't actually Genji's strength to hit you. Actually, if you're just flying high and annoying the enemy Genji's team that's not mobile, and the Genji's wasting his time trying to chuck shurikens at you because you shouldn't be dying to him because you're playing out of his range, right? Out of his dash range, you're flying high enough. You're wasting his time. He's not converting any value, but you are because you're shooting the other people. So that's how you deal with Sky Genjis. And I think that's 10 questions for the week. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.